Hey, Tricia, welcome to this special interview that we're doing on manifestation. Super pumped to have you here.
Emily, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to talk with you about manifestation.
Before we dive into that, I want to let everyone know just how amazing you are. So, of course, James and I have the pleasure of working with you. We've worked for you with you for almost 2 years now, which is such a joy. And above and beyond all of that, you are an incredible speaking coach. You are the founder of the Big Talk Academy, which is a certification program for new and aspiring speakers. You have the Big Talk membership, and your passion is all about helping people craft their big talk and then helping them land amazing stages like TED, TEDx, so they can have massive impact in the world.
That's all true.
Love it. And you are also a writer, producer, and director. You are somebody who has been a lifelong athlete. As you said to me recently, you've been a dancer for most of your life. And the reason I bring that up is because you are no stranger to success. You've achieved massive things. You recently wrote an incredible book that dives into your backstory, all about moving from a rural state all the way to New York City to pursue your passions. So, like I said, the reason I share that is because you've had a lot of success in your life. But I know for a lot of that period of time, you didn't know how you made it happen. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. This is what David Nagel calls being an unconscious competent. And I'm sure that it's been talked about way before David began talking about it. But what became clear to me was that I was very successful with discipline, grit, tenacity, and all of those things served me in having a very successful life and career. And when I became conscious of my confidence and my competence, and when I became conscious of I can actually be more successful than I am now if I am connected to the bigger picture, if I'm connected to the universe, if I start to tap into my intuitive side, if I start to think about how I feel instead of just doing all the time and rolling up my sleeves and pushing. And when I released into, literally leaned back into what was possible, along with the tenacity and the discipline, that didn't go anywhere. But when I gave myself permission to allow the space for more became possible. And that is when I became conscious.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important. And I remember in particular when we did our first VIP day with you, you said you weren't woo woo. I don't know that we even talked about manifestation. We definitely talked about money mindset, but it wasn't something that you were like wanting to dive into further. So can you talk a little bit about what was it that really supported you in becoming aware that you had this other sort of inner power or inner way of doing things, and what helped you kind of accept that and actually jump on the bandwagon?
That's such a funny story, Emily, because I think before we even began working, I was like, just so you know, I'm not pulling cards. I was very, very defensive about it. And I had no understanding of what it meant to be connected to source. I had zero understanding, again, unconscious here, unconsciously competent. And when we began to work together, and everyone listening, Emily did not ever once push anything onto me. This all came to me because I started reading books. I started becoming more aware of the bigger picture. I started deepening my meditation practice. I started deepening my connection to source and truly started acknowledging my connection to the universe. And when I started reading and thinking and allowing for, and also playing the game of, is this really happening? I was playing the game, right? And Pam Grout's book, E Squared, it's an amazing book. And so I just started testing my personal strength and my personal relationship to source. And the moment I opened up to it, boy, did I hear from source and from the universe daily. And that was a gift that I think you gave me, Emily, because you didn't ask me to do anything. You simply asked me to become conscious of my own power and my own connection to the universe. And so I say this because you're a dancer, you're doing plies, it's hard work, it should always be hard. Being a performing artist in New York City is hard. You hear no all the time. All that's true, and anything is possible. Like Emily said, I am from a small town in Missouri, and now I live in New York City with my incredible husband in a beautiful apartment that faces the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater. Anything is possible for you as well. And if you can think it, and you've got the mentor here who is taking you places, if you can think it, it's already yours. And so that's why this idea of manifestation and this idea of woo, for me, I don't know if I call it woo, but I absolutely am connected to source in a way that I didn't allow in before.
And can you share any specific stories, some of the earlier stories that you can remember where you first realized this connection?
Absolutely. The biggest moment for me that changed my trajectory and brought me to Emily and James was I had hired a hypnotherapy coach, Grace Smith, who is the top hypnotherapy mentor, to work with me on some health stuff. And I was preparing for our first session, sitting at the kitchen table in my apartment on 57th Street and just centering myself for the work. And I got a download, which was, you have to move. And I thought, oh God, I hope Joe comes with me, because I was moving. And I was living in an apartment on 57th and 10th, great neighborhood. They were never going to raise our rent. They were never going to ask us to leave. And when you live in New York City and you have that deal, you don't move. But I was moving. And I remember getting on the call with Grace and saying, I don't think our session is about my body. I think our session is about my apartment. And she said, great, let's lean into it. And at the end of the session, she gave me a number to her friend who was a real estate agent. And we started looking for apartments. And I remember saying to Joe, honey, I don't know why, I don't know how, but this is happening. And I need you to trust me. And this was one of my most influential speeches and negotiations I have ever given in my life. To talk my husband, who had lived in that apartment for 15 years, to move when there was no reason for it, that was an epic moment of communication. And that became the ripple effect to this moment in time right now. I moved from a small, dark, one-bedroom apartment, walk up, to a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, wrap-around window, very light, doorman building with a gym and an outdoor space in the building, 2 blocks from where I lived. And in that year, my word was expansive. And I called this into my life because I was listening, because I was available. And in that moment, I said, I'm always going to stay available.
That's such a beautiful story. I love it. And I love how in that moment you were in full trust, so much so that you just hoped your husband was going to say yes to this opportunity because you were going one way or another and you didn't question it. You were that person who leaned into it. And I know I've definitely experienced that. And, for both of us, James and myself, trusting that we needed to move from London to LA when we did. Thank God that we trusted that, because then COVID happened. Who knows when we would have been able to get to the US. Same with you, who you ended up in this beautiful, spacious apartment where you basically couldn't leave for a whole year. Thank God that you trusted that and you made that move.
And Joe thanks me every day. Let's be clear.
I'm sure. Love it. So one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation is you and I were talking about a recent trip that you took, and one of your practices, which I think is actually where you had that download. You were on a trip, correct?
This most recent trip was slightly different than the one that I had before. When I go away in December, normally I do a planning retreat for myself. I go away to a 5-star hotel and I plan for the year. And that particular trip prepared me to meet you and James. And that was 2 years ago. And
Amazing.
that trip made me available to, not only I was moving into this new apartment in December, but I also, I'm going to just sidebar for a second with how we met. Emily was coming to LA from London, and she posted, I'm going to be in London. I'm going to be in LA looking for homes with James, and I'm going to do a VIP day. So I reached out, direct message. That sounds interesting. Tell me more. She's like, we're going to do this. It's going to be all day in LA. It's $15,000. And I thought, who pays $15,000 for spending a day with someone? Now, keep in mind, I did not know Emily at this point. I had only been following her on social media. So she was not yet a mentor. We'd not been working together on a smaller scale. But that knowing and that trust was the exact same knowing and trust I had with the apartment. So I flew myself 6,000 miles to work with Emily and James for one day for $15,000. That has now turned into 2 years of exquisite mentorship. And that's why I'm here today talking about manifestation, because it's been this incredible journey of not knowing anything, just knowing I wanted to have a better business, to anything is possible. So this past couple of months ago, I took myself on a trip that was not a creation trip for planning the new year. It was absolutely a trip of receivership. I went in with the clear intention that I was going to meditate and manifest, period. So I flew myself alone down to West Palm Beach at the Four Seasons. And I also booked myself a cabana for the 4 days that I was there. Now, cabanas are usually for couples or for people. And so I ultimately booked a small studio apartment facing the ocean with my back to the pool for $600 extra a day, because I knew I was going to be getting some serious meditation and manifestation done in this perfectly closed off from everyone else. I didn't have to fight for a beach chair. I didn't have to be next to any kids. No offense, I love kids. I just needed to be in the luxurious place of absolute receivership. On the way there, I was, because of an introduction from Emily, given an opportunity to interview Sage and Serena Dyer, Wayne Dyer's daughters, about their new book, The Knowing. Well, their book happened to arrive the day before my trip. So I thought, I'll bring the book. That'll be a perfect thing for me to read in this space of meditation and manifestation. And in addition to writing in my journal every single day and designing the exact story for my life, exactly how it looks, exactly how I feel, everything that I desire. In addition to doing that, I was reading this book. And inside of the book, the first page says, we postponed writing this book because our father passed away in 2015, and we've been dealing with the grief. And when we realized that our father really wants us to be speakers, yes, Dr. Dyer, I'm here and available. First time, right? I go on to continue reading, and they share inside of the book that their dad was procrastinating writing his book. He kept putting it off, and they're like, yeah, Dad, you're going to procrastinate another day. No, girls, I'm really going to write it. And he started writing his last book on June 27th. That's my wedding anniversary. Yes, I'm available. I keep reading, and they go on to say, we're so grateful that we were able to travel with our father for his very last speaking event. And the whole family traveled with him, and it was so incredible. And it was so special to be together. And the very last speaking event Wayne Dyer ever did was on August 27th, my birthday.
Wow.
Yes, I'm available. And I'm emotional thinking about it, because when you give yourself permission to be available, and you give yourself permission to be in a space of absolute receivership, anything is possible. And that is why manifestation has become a practice. It has become a daily event. It is something that I am available to every single day. And I am so grateful that I am now tapped in so clearly to source, and I can listen and I can receive.
And can you talk a little bit about what you were able to receive during that time away and why it was so impactful?
In addition to the confirmation, the evidence, if you will, that I was in full receivership, I detached from how any of what I was designing was going to happen. So when I came home and I had an inbox full of people asking to work with me one-on-one, I was able to be grateful, and I was able to say, thank you. These are the people I am meant to be working with. These are the top level thought leaders. These are the people who know what they want, and they want to start yesterday. So in addition to them reaching out to me, they were able to fill my calendar through 2022. So talk about being in full receivership. My one-on-one clients are booked through 2022. And I believe without a doubt, that is a direct effect of me calling in what I desire and being available to receive it with absolutely no fear, and without absolutely any attachment to how it was going to happen. If I had concerned myself with how it was going to happen, I would have gotten in the way of that.
Right. So beautiful. So let's be clear, at the time that we're recording this, it's August 31st, 2021. So Tricia has a waiting list. She's booked into the next year. And I know that was one of your intentions when we first started working together. You said, I want a waiting list. I want to be fully booked. And now it's here.
Yeah, here it is for sure.
Can you break down your process a little bit more for people, even as specifically as on the day, let's say the first day or day after day when you were on your trip, what did your process look like to really get yourself into this mode of receiving?
The day-to-day means I am going to fly first class. I'm going to pack extremely comfortable pajamas. I'm going to make reservations for myself every single night so that I'm not hoping I get a table. I'm going to let the concierge know that I want a specific pillow. I'm going to make sure that I have a massage scheduled for myself. And I'm going to make it clear to the people around the pool and the cabana that I want sparkling water that's cold throughout the entire day. And so I ask for every single thing that I want. And then I spend 30 to 45 minutes meditating. And what's amazing is I do meditation, and I also do hypnotherapy meditation, which means I envision where I am. And it's often on a beach facing the ocean, and I can hear the waves. Well, what was so magnificent about this trip is I didn't have to hear that because it was live and in real time and real audio. So I would meditate facing the ocean and give myself permission to allow whatever would come. And after I meditated, that was sort of the being in receivership. Then I would move into outward manifestation, which was, today is going to be this, and this is what I am going to be available for. And also I would write down everything that I'm grateful for. So it was really an opportunity for me to fully ask for what I desire unapologetically. Again, those cabanas were $600 extra a day. And I made it clear to the team that I wanted the same cabana every day. I like doing the same thing more than once. I'm a creature of habit, and that works for me. And then I would also make it very clear to the folks at the restaurant, like, hi, I'm Tricia, I'm back again, creating community, creating that personal relationship. So energetically, anytime I went to the restaurant or anytime I went to the little lunch spot, I was greeted immediately with kindness and affection, if you will, because of the energy that I was giving off. And that comes from how you treat people. So I take that kind of behavior and that kind of decision-making very seriously.
So beautiful. And did you allow yourself to sleep in? Did you stick to the same exercise routine? I'm curious about that part.
I absolutely stuck to the same exercise routine, but what was different was I got to practice yoga on the beach. And for me, being in nature and being in front of the ocean, and it had been almost 2 years. So it was such an emotional, incredible release to be able to just get sand in my mouth and be dirty and during yoga and sweaty. I was like, I am so happy to have sand in the crevices right now. And so that was really magical. I absolutely stuck to my routine. I think I probably drank more water when I was away because it was available to me so frequently. But I am a routine person. So I gave myself the permission to be active in a different location, but I maintained the same routine.
What I think is so interesting about that is I remember you and I had the conversation and your first thought was, well, I'm just going to book, I think it was like the Shangri-La or something, however you say it, hotel in New York. You said, I'm going to book a hotel in New York and I'm going to stay in the city. And the more we were talking, I was like, Tricia, I think you need to go somewhere in nature. And so we talked about Florida, and then literally within a few hours you had booked something and it was, all set. So I'm curious to know, did you just not consider Florida, or like, what was it that made it so that the beach, because obviously you crave it, that wasn't initially on your radar?
This is a really great question. And again, I highlight that we all need mentors who can point things out to us. That's why I work with speakers. I point things out to them. So Emily, being the exceptional coach and mentor that she is, she asked the question, she got curious. Why is it that you're going to take yourself on a staycation instead of actually going to nature? And I thought, if I'm honest with myself, it's convenience. I've got a mask. I'm vaccinated. That was my decision. Everyone has their own choice around that. But she was right. And so putting the extra effort in to actually going on a trip, and it was also my anniversary weekend. So I said to Joe, honey, can we celebrate when I get back? And he said, absolutely, you deserve it. Go be on a trip. So having that open dialogue and really putting myself first, and really first, not just going across the street to a hotel, but literally booking a trip so that I could be in front of the ocean and practice yoga at 6 a.m. was everything. And I think that kind of container that I was giving myself added to the epic receivership and manifestation that happened, for sure.
Totally. And I love that. I love that you're willing to take a look, and, I think it was the Mandarin Oriental, now that I'm thinking about it, to take a look at, is this actually my truth, or is it just convenient? And I think so often people are thinking about what's convenient or what's in my price point, but it's not actually your truth. And if you're just like slapping a Band-Aid on something, it's not going to do what you want it to do. It's not going to have the effect that you want. And so I love that you're always willing to tune in. And I know when you came back, like there were even more up levels, like booking a car service, a regular driver, vegan chef, like all the things that you do. And it's so amazing, not only how much you are able to give to yourself, but how quickly you're able to up level and just honor what it is that is for your highest good and for the highest good of your company.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a no-brainer. Coming back, I realized I no longer want to deal with car services. So I now have a driver that I text.
So amazing. I mean, everyone has to know working with you is such a dream, because it's like, I'm fully booked. I booked this driver. I have the vegan chef. Like all these things are happening and you're doing it. You're saying yes and you're showing up. And that really does start with fully trusting that your intuition is guiding you in the right direction. And you have to practice that. Like that's not just something, everyone has an intuition, but a lot of people, they push it away. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to say yes. But I love how you've been practicing that over the last few years. And now it's turned into kind of a bigger practice, not just smaller things. But I want everyone listening to this to understand, like, you don't have to start with a week-long trip at the Four Seasons. You can start with something smaller that feels aligned to you and kind of work your way up. Or you can go all in. There's no right way, but we're just talking about trusting yourself here, and also recognizing that it doesn't have to be, and it really can't be, if you want sustainable success, it can't be push, 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 just about working hard. There's a whole nother component to creating a life that's better than your dreams.
Absolutely. And I can't reiterate enough, we all need an outside eye. And part of the ability to trust comes from having a community or a support system or a mentor. So having somebody in your court and who's really lifting you up and reminding you or pointing out or helping you make adjustments so that you can continue to, oh, yes, I trust myself. We're on the same path. It's really, really important that you've got that support in place too.
Amazing. What would you say was your biggest lesson from that week away?
That this is a really good question. And there's so many things that I learned, but I think being in full receivership means being in absolute surrender. That's my biggest lesson.
Thank you, Tricia. Well, I so appreciate you being willing to share this story. I know it's helped so many people. And as I mentioned to you, one of the things I really wanted to highlight here is just the power of the mind and the power of taking time off and giving to yourself and making sure that you're full before you give to others. Because I think so many of us do fall into the pattern of hard work and striving and hustle. And that's the only way to create the reality that we want. But you've shown us another way. And I so appreciate you being willing to share your story.
Anytime, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you.